OM System CEO released a statement about the prospect of the company for 2025, and one of the things they mentioned was that they now provide solutions to industrial and academic fields, so essentially expert services, and this seems to have a stable, profitable growth for them, which is good because it means the company can maintain to function and they can also support the development of new cameras and lenses. So even though the income stream is not directly from cameras, at least they can support the company going forward. Another thing which was mentioned in this statement is that they plan to add a new camera to the lineup. They didn't say exactly what the camera will be, but if you look at the wording, they say we will provide more options for compact, lightweight, and splash and dust-proof products. Now, the word compact here implies that they won't be releasing an EM1X or a successor to that. They're mainly focusing on smaller cameras. So we shouldn't expect an EM1X or even an OM1 this year from OM System. So maybe something like a PenF camera or something along those lines is more likely to be released. They also mentioned that they're gonna release compact single focal length lenses. This means that they will release more than one prime lens, and again they have a focus on compact. So I don't know if this means there will be M-Zuiko Pro lenses or one of the regular M-Zuiko lenses, because all of the M-Zuiko Pro lenses tend to be on the bigger and heavier side. And another thing they mentioned was also the plan to release a mid-range telephoto zoom lens, which is on the roadmap. But circling back to the camera which they plan to release, they published a photo of this camera, and then in the reflection is apparently the new camera that they plan to release this year. So it might be something that looks exactly like this, or maybe it won't have a viewfinder, or maybe it's a PenF or some type of pen camera. And I also heard rumors that it will be called the OM3. So I'm not sure what it will be called, but it's definitely a compact camera, as you can see here, and it will have something like a lever here or something. Maybe that's just to switch between different picture profiles, and then you can see something along those lines here in the reflection, which would be the 2025 camera which will be released. So that's the camera they had released in 1972, which is a film camera, and then the 2025 camera is this one here. And here's just a bigger picture of that, if you just want to try to focus to see whether you can tell anything from here. A while back, Panasonic announced a new box camera with the model number AW-UB10, again with a micro four thirds mount and a 4/3 sensor. So this camera didn't get sufficient publicity, which is why I'm mentioning it again. It's just good to be aware of these box cameras. And it does have a lot of nice features. You know, it has 3G SDI, HDMI, and power over Ethernet. And they also seem to support RTMP and SRT and the functionality for the PTZ cameras, so it can be controlled remotely. Now, I looked at the price of this camera on one website, and this is currently more expensive than buying a GH7. So the box camera is obviously good and has its own unique style and features which are really practical when you want to use it in certain scenarios. But I still can't think that I would purchase this instead of the GH7. I think even if I wanted to use a box camera, I would rather purchase the GH7, or I could purchase two GH6s with this price for my setup, and I would work around the shortcomings of those when it comes to, for example, SDI or NDI or whatever shortcomings they have. But I find that having a screen on a box camera is really useful, even if it's a tiny screen. So for example, with the Z cams, they have this tiny screen on top of the camera, and obviously this screen is not useful for pulling focus or trying to assess the exposure levels or the accuracy of colors. But what it does let you do is to frame the picture. So if you have a box camera and you want to attach it somewhere, that moment when you want to physically attach the camera somewhere, it's really useful to have a tiny screen to be able to frame the picture. And then you can go back to your workstation, and from there you can set the focus and coloring scheme and everything else accurately, whether you're changing the white balance or exposure and anything else. So that's why I say I would rather buy two GH6 cameras than one of these box cameras for Panasonic, or just buy one GH7. So you have the screen, you have viewfinders, you have a lot of functionality that those cameras provide. Another Micro Four Thirds camera which Panasonic announced towards the end of 2024 was the Lumix G97. So this is not a flagship camera, so I don't really have much to say about it. It's supposed to be relatively small compared to the GH6 or GH7 or the G9 Mark II. So for anyone who's interested, this camera will be out soon. Although in terms of size, it doesn't seem to be competing with the OM system OM5. So I'm not sure exactly who the target audience for this camera is. So here you can see the weight, which is 530 grams, which is relatively heavy for consumer camera, I think, when you compare it to the OM5.